Hey guys, it's Mikhail Lewis again, back with another banger. And alright, let's jump right into it. And actually, I recorded this video yesterday, and when I checked the files, my phone actually didn't have enough storage, so it never actually saved on my phone, which was quite sad, but it's okay. I'm doing it again, and it's even gonna be better. So today's topic is all about cotton, and like I always do, I'm just gonna give a brief description on what I mean by this. So in gym bro terms, cutting is when you basically try to burn fat while retaining as much muscle mass as possible, which for most people is very difficult. Today I'm going to inform you all on how you could go about cutting weight while retaining as much muscle mass as possible. And a quick disclaimer, losing muscle mass is actually inevitable, but there's certain things you could do to reduce the amount of muscle mass you lose. And I have actually done this process of cutting many times in the past. And through trial and error, I have gotten really good at it. So I thought it would be nice to pass on the information because I love y'all. So my first point is calorie deficit. You need to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight. In order for weight loss to occur, you need to create a negative energy balance. But first, you need to find out what your maintenance calories would look like. There's actually a bunch of calorie calculators you could find on the internet, but I found this one very accurate. It's called caloriecalculator.net. And all you have to do is plug in your age, your height, your weight, your gender, and your physical activity, and boom, it calculates what your maintenance calories would look like. So that's the first step. Okay, now that that's out of the way, there's two ways you can go about to achieve a negative energy balance. First, you could decrease the amount of calories you eat, or you could increase the amount of cardio you do. If you love food as much as I do, you'd rather do cardio, but at the same time, you don't want to be doing too much cardio, especially high intensity cardio. I actually prefer doing low intensity cardio, for example, going on long walks rather than doing high intensity cardio, because doing high intensity cardio could take forever to recover from this form of cardio, and you also don't want it to get in the way of your weight training, which is very crucial during a cut. But hold on guys, I'm going to get into how you should train in a second. But at the same time, for anyone that loves doing high intensity cardio, you could do this, but I wouldn't do this more than once or twice per week, and as long as it doesn't get in the way of your training sessions. Unfortunately, there's many mistakes that people make when trying to achieve a calorie deficit. You don't want to end up losing weight very fast because that's a recipe for disaster. You'll end up losing both muscle and fat. I would only suggest that if you're at a really high body fat percentage, then losing weight at a faster rate would be fine until you reach a leaner body fat percentage. Then you should slow down your rate of loss. For slow weight loss, anywhere between 0.5 to 1% body weight loss per week should be fine. And for people at a higher body fat percentage, anywhere between 1.5 to 1.8% body weight loss per week should be sufficient. So in order to achieve a slow rate of loss, I would start off with a 300 calorie deficit. So after calculating what your maintenance calories would look like, just subtract 300 calories from this, and that would be your starting point, and just monitor your body weight week to week. Do not decrease your calories any further. I repeat, do not decrease your calories any further until your body weight loss has plateaued. Plateauing may look different for every individual. So some individuals may actually plateau after 2 weeks, and some may plateau after 4 weeks. And additionally, the first week of cutting, you may lose weight very fast, but that's probably because it's mostly water weight. But just monitor the weeks following that. And when you do plateau, then I would suggest cutting another 100 calories. So instead of a 300 calorie deficit, you would now be in a 400 calorie deficit. And then you monitor your body weight again until you have plateaued. Then you could decrease your calories another 100 calories. So for the individuals at a higher body fat percentage that wants to experience faster weight loss, I have great news for you. I actually found a study that was conducted by scientists at the University of Finland, where they split professional jumpers and sprinters into two groups. The first group maintained a 300 calorie deficit, and the second group maintained a 750 calorie deficit. At the end of the 4-week study, they found that the first group that maintained a 300 calorie deficit actually lost very little fat and muscle, and the second group, which maintained a 750 calorie deficit, on average lost 4 pounds and very little was actually muscle mass. However, though, these are elite professional athletes, so I wouldn't recommend such a high deficit to the average individuals. But for the guys at a higher body fat percentage, this could be very beneficial because, as I said earlier, when you're at a higher body fat percentage, it's initially okay to lose weight at a faster rate, but your protein intake has to be very high, which I'm about to get into right now. So how should you partition your macronutrients? So there's proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. 1 gram of carbohydrate equals 4 calories, 1 gram of protein equals 4 calories, and 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories. For slow fat loss, your protein intake should be around 1 gram to 1.4 grams per pound of body weight. And if you're doing higher amounts of physical activity, your protein intake should be at the higher end of this range. Make sure your fats make up 20 to 25% of your calories, nothing lower than 20%. Consuming fats is very important and crucial for hormone regulation and balance. And while the rest of your calories should come from carbohydrates. But guys, protein intake is king here. Your carbohydrate to fat ratio does not matter that much as long as your fat intake does not go below 20% of your calories. And for those at a higher body fat percentage, your protein intake should be around 1.6 to 1.8 grams per pound of body weight. And just follow the same guidelines I mentioned for your fat intake and your carbohydrate intake. If you don't know how to track calories and macronutrients, let me know if you'd like to see a video on how to do so. I would happily do it. Let me know in the comment section below. Alright, let's get into the second most important factor when trying to cut weight, and that is your resistance training. So a common misconception that most people tend to do is that they start doing higher reps because they think this actually burns more calories, or they associate higher reps with getting more defined muscles, but unfortunately this ends up contributing to losing muscle mass. You need to make sure, and I repeat, you really need to make sure that you're placing the same stimulus that you were placing on your muscles before you were cutting. So if you were doing a particular weight for how many reps before you cut, if you could try to maintain this weight for how many reps you were doing before your cut, this would be great. Strength is actually a great indicator on how much muscle mass you are actually retaining. And same goes for the guys that were doing strength training. It does not matter what training you're doing. As long as you can maintain your strength, that is a really good indicator on how much muscle mass you are actually retaining. If you aren't lifting the same amount of weights you were lifting before you started cutting, you most probably lost strength. Yeah, I know, I wish we could be lean and strong, but guys, it's inevitable that this happens. But if you train right, you can reduce the amount of strength you lose, therefore reduce the amount of muscle mass you lose. So these are the tips I would give to anyone that wants to maximize on their training while cutting. So when it comes to training frequency, if you were training 5 times per week before you started cutting, I would continue training 5 times per week. When it comes to training volume, I would say at the start of a cut, it's okay to continue doing the same amount of volume you do, especially when your calories are still in the higher end. But when your calories become lower, you should reduce the amount of volume you do because you want to make sure that your recovery management is on point, and reducing your volume would make sure that your recovery management is on point. If you can uphold good recovery management between training sessions, you have a higher chance of actually keeping your strength. And when it comes to training intensity, the same thing applies. You need to make sure your recovery management is on point. And there's going to be times where you can train to failure, but most times you really shouldn't be training to failure. I did a whole video on this topic. You could check that out. So now I'm about to get into some other little important things you should be doing when you're cutting. You need to make sure you're getting in your micronutrients, so your vitamins. Especially when you're consuming less calories, it's harder to get in your micronutrients. So I would say supplement with multivitamins. And also I would suggest you supplement with a fish oil to help you get in your essential fats. So my second point is that you need to switch out the higher calorie foods to lower calorie nutrient dense foods. All calories aren't created equally, so 2500 of high calorie foods may not be as satiating as 2500 of low calorie nutrient dense foods. Lower calorie nutrient dense foods allow you to stay more full, and that is what I mean by satiating, whereas 2500 of high calorie foods may leave you feeling hungry and starved in the night. And that's not what you want. You want to make sure your diet is as sustainable as possible to keep you on point so you can be successful when cutting weight. Also, you want to make sure you're getting in sufficient fiber. So I would suggest having a serving of vegetable with each meal you eat, and also trying to get 2 servings of fruit per day. These two things can help you reach your fiber intake. So my last point is that sleep is very important. It's going to help you keep your cortisol levels down. It's going to help you regulate your hormones, and it's going to leave you feeling recovered for your future training sessions. Okay guys, that's it for today. If you really enjoyed this value and gained value from this video, if you could share, leave a like and subscribe, that will be really good for me and the algorithm. As always, take care. Peace.